All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our pandemic survival group coaching session. This is the third week of us doing our group coaching session. So want to thank you all for joining us this morning. I have actually changed locations. I'm not in San Diego this week. I'm actually out in Palm Desert with helping my folks to learn how to shelter in place. I helped my dad on a Zoom call this morning. My 83-year-old dad got on his Kiwanis Zoom call this morning. So anyway, well, thank you all for joining us here. And my name is Ed Earl, as I said, and for those of you that are new to the call, I run a construction project management company in San Diego where I serve as an owner's rep. And in addition to that, I'm also a business coach with the two other gentlemen that I am on the call with. So I'll turn it over to Paul.
Well, I've been doing this for 35 years, which makes me an old guy. I've worked with, I don't know, pick a number, 400 or 500 companies in that time between 1 million and 100 million. So I've made a lot of mistakes, done a lot of things right and wrong. This is a very interesting time. I don't think we've ever done this before. So who knows what's going to happen, but it's exciting. You know, we'll just have to make the most of whatever happens, and we're here to help. David?
All right, I'm David Luperger. I'm a former building contractor, and just as Paul, I've figured out a lot of ways to lose money, but over time, you begin to learn how to make money, which is really the point of these coaching sessions. What can we do? What can we share from our experience, from your experience, so that we all kind of get through this and turn whatever negative into as many positives as possible. Okay, Ed?
All right, so just real quickly to kind of go through what our intent here is on the group coaching session. As you may or may not know, we also are doing a weekly webinar every Friday where we share the latest and greatest information that we've learned during the week and all of the latest information, whether it's helping you to get the loans or where you are as far as what kinds of construction that you can do. But our intent on this weekly group coaching session is to provide more individual advice and guidance and give each of you a chance, if you'd like, to be able to ask questions and also to provide some peer support. We're all in this together, and we feel it's very helpful for you all to be able to hear from your fellow contractors. And so that's part of the purpose of this as well. So let's start, as I always do, with where we are as far as who can work and who can't. So I guess the good news is that things haven't changed that much in the last week. So this is the chart as it was of last Friday, or actually last Thursday, April 9th. And nothing really has changed since then. So we still have 5 states that are shut down completely. I was just speaking before this call with Sarah, who's actually on this call, and she's in Michigan, and she has been shut down since March 25th. So, and they're telling her that they're going to try to open up again, I think she said on the 30th. So I know from talking to one of our clients in Washington, they've been shut down, I think, since the 23rd, and they're talking about opening back up on May 5th. So we'll have to see how that goes. So, all right, well, hopefully all of you on this call have now understood all of the different relief that's available for you through the CARES Act, and hopefully all of you have applied for both the economic injury disaster loan as well as the Paycheck Protection Program. So we are still hearing more information as that's coming out. The latest that I received was this email that I got from the Small Business Administration in regards to my application for the economic injury disaster loan application, which, by the way, I submitted 2 weeks ago. I think many of you felt like if you didn't submit it correctly, if you didn't get a confirmation. But I just want to let you know that what I've experienced personally, as well as all of our clients, is that this is the first correspondence that anyone's gotten. Yeah. And it's an interesting one. Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
You know, Mike C had something to say about getting like the $2 million part of that one. So you might ask his comments, because I talked to him this week, and I think there might be some insight he can loan to that. Okay. Can you talk?
Yep. let's see if we got some input from Mike. What I'll tell you too is here as I'm getting Mike unmuted here, trying to figure out how to use my laptop.
You want me to do it, Ed? I've got it right in front of me.
Yes, please. So as you can tell, what they've done now is it says to ensure that the greatest number of applicants can receive assistance during this challenging time, the amount of your advance will be determined by the number of pre-disaster employees. So therefore, for example, for me, I applied for the 10,000, but I only have 2 employees. So I'm only going to get $2,000 instead of $10,000. So let's see. Do we have Mike? Are you on?
Mike's unmuted.
Yeah, I'm
okay,
on.
So
I'm doing 2 calls at the same time, so I apologize.
Hey, Mike, so I have a question for you. You talked about that there's a significant amount of money available to us if you do it right. Could you, sort of explain to people on the webinar what you meant by, I want to go for the 2 million part?
Well, I think, obviously you guys have done a good job at determining that there's 2 different, it's important for people to understand these are 2 completely, totally separate programs from each other. I think everybody's up to speed on the PPP, but the full loan that they just sent out, that is definitely something that everybody should apply for. So Paul, maybe you want to direct me a little bit more on what you want me to speak to.
Well, you can talk about, and it's an EIDL loan that you were saying you're going to go for the 2 million. Can you explain how you even think you can do that and what that loan's all about and how you apply for it?
Yeah, well, like a lot of times with the SBA, most of the loans are shorter term. It's pretty rare that you get a 30-year SBA loan. So I think anytime you can pick up 30 years worth of $2 million, and I don't know how they're going to determine what the need is for the $2 million. But in the construction industry, it's pretty easy to determine that need. So it's not like we're a tanning salon and we only do $250,000 in revenue every year. There's no way they'd give you $2 million, but most of us can probably justify $2 million of working capital. When you look at the interest rate, you're just a couple points above inflation, so it's almost free money. So if you do $2 million at 30 years and you amortize that out, that payment's roughly going to be right around $10,500 a month. So to pick up $2 million in working capital for $10,500 a month, plus the fact that you're going to get that deferred for a year, you're going to pick up $120,000 worth of payments deferred for a year. It's to me, I'm not a huge fan of debt, but this is kind of almost a no-brainer. Especially since we can talk economics on another call, but everything is strong right now, at least where my sector is here in Southern California. We have a lot of insurance work and what have you. But I think once we see this U-shaped curve or what happens in the recovery, we should be stockpiling to make sure that we can meet those expenses and or get through this bump in the economy, whatever it is. And so I think that once the economy comes back on board, we're going to have a little bit of a lag, and maybe David, Ed, or Paul, you guys can speak to that a little bit later. But this loan, I don't know exactly. I've talked to a lot of different bankers at a lot of different banks, and the application obviously went straight through the SBA. I don't know how they're going to manage this one. The SBA typically, and Ed, Paul, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, I've done an SBA loan before. They always go through the bank. It's never direct. Right. But so keeping that relationship with your banker is vitally important, just because anybody that didn't have a relationship is not getting their application submitted because they're prioritizing those based on relationship at the bank for the most part.
Yes, they are.
So,
yep.
So the only other thing I wanted to talk about with the PPP, especially, or anything that's going to be forgivable, and we don't know this yet, and Paul, you and I spoke about this yesterday, and I think it's important just to put in the back of your mind, is, it's nice to pick up, whatever your PPP is, whether it's $100,000 or $500,000, depending on the size of your business. But the thing that concerns me is if the government's going to send us a 1099 at the end of the year when they forgive that loan. I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but there's an accounting issue that you should just be aware of, that loan's going to come onto your balance sheet initially, and that cash is going to come into your bank account. But if they forgive that loan, you're going to have to transfer that on your balance sheet over to the revenue side, and that's going to come in a straight profit if you don't have any expenses to go against it. So just something to it's not a concern, here April 15th, which ironically is tax day.
Ironically.
Well,
Yeah,
it should be tax day. Yeah, July 15th is the new one this year. But I think it's something to keep in the back of your mind that if you're a smaller business, you need to be aware that the government, they're pretty sneaky about that stuff. And most loans, if anybody's ever had a loan forgiven for any reason, they will always send you a 1099 and make you claim that as income, whether you're a corporation, sole proprietor or not.
Ed had some information on it, didn't you, Ed? That it was going to be not counted?
Right. Yep, exactly. So this is the slide that I have up here. Now, this is from the Tax Foundation. So, but it says, again, under federal law, loan forgiveness generally counts as taxable income. However, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act expressly excludes the forgiveness of small business loans under the Paycheck Protection Program from this provision. So
there you go.
And it's right. And it says, since states generally follow federal treatment of debt discharge, they would be expected to incorporate this exception as well. So it looks like it's definitely written in from the federal side, and it sounds like the only possibility might be is if some of the states try to tax you for it.
Now, I have a question for you, Mike, real quick. How do I apply? I mean, I put in my, $10,000 thing that was the quickie for the SBA on that one loan. But how do you, apply for more, or what do they do? Everybody on the call, I'm sure, has applied for the $10,000 quickie on this one. But what about the rest of it? I mean, how does that happen? Do you know?
So for now, that is the application. And then secondly, the banks have received no information. So I've talked to 3-4 different bankers that I know. So I know some VPs at some different banks as well. So I've talked to City National. They have no idea. Chase has no idea. At least, they're a bigger bank. Wells Fargo has no idea. And I've talked to Small Credit Union. They've not received any information on the EIDL and how that's going to work. They're still trying to get caught up just on the PPP. And those rules came out late anyways. They still got delayed on those. So I think we're just kind of in a holding pattern. I think it's good, okay. Ed, like I got that same email. I think it's good that they've acknowledged that we've submitted that application. But that application, that online one, is the EIDL loan. So we'll see.
So there's nothing anybody can do other than what they've done. If they submitted the one online, we're done, right?
Not that I know of, and not from the 4 contacts that I've talked to.
Okay.
I got a question here, Ed, from Ned on what the screen you pulled up about forgiveness. And I'm just reading his note. It says on the top left column, EIDL advance is not forgivable, but on the right column, it says it is. I think that's on the chart you have up.
Right. So my understanding is that the advance, right, that initial advance is forgivable, but the larger loan that Mike is talking about is not forgivable.
It's not.
So I did receive some communication about that there's going to be certain aspects of that are going to be forgivable, and I think they're still working on the rules of that. So there might be elements of like mortgage payments, rent, utilities, the same stuff that's on the PPP that might wind up becoming forgivable, but they haven't clarified. They always call it the rules, when they write the code or the rules for each loan. I just think that they're just so clueless that they just don't even know what they're going to do yet. They just wanted to tell everybody, this is what we're going to do.
Okay.
Right. All right. Mike, have you gotten funded? Has your PPP gotten funded yet?
I have not gotten funded, and I do not know of anybody that's gotten funded yet. So I've been in contact with all of my subs, everybody that I know that's done this, a lot of business owners, and I have not heard of anybody getting funded yet, but let's hear from you guys.
Yeah,
we've got good news.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep. So we actually have experience from our clients that have been funded. So I just put a few of them here up on the screen. A client in Arkansas got $212,000 a week ago. Client in Montana got $46,000 on Thursday, $102,000 in Virginia, and Missouri this Monday got $160,000. So, but as Mike said, all of the fundings have been from local banks. So, and if you recall my own personal experience, I started with B of A. and then canceled that application and went to the Bank of Southern California. And this was the email that I got just yesterday. Hi, Ed. I checked our spreadsheet for the day, and you have received SBA authorization this morning, which secures your spot in line for funding. I would imagine that we will have documents ready for you by the end of the week or early next week, and you should be funded by the end of next week. So that means I'm still 10 days away from seeing my money, but the good news is that my process has been done.
Right. And now, also, just as an update, as of Friday, of the 250 billion total, 161 billion has been approved and assigned.
Wow.
Can I bring up one thing in regards to the what Mike was saying about the local banks?
Yes.
And I've mentioned this to you too, but my brother is a retired banker, and he basically said that when a bank approves the loan, because they're the ones doing the processing, there is liability. And if there is fraud, if the loan goes bad, they don't receive SBA guarantees. They take on that as a bad loan. So he said, as a lender, I will prioritize and work with known borrowers. If there's a relationship, if I know the person, we have history. So just as Mike said, those local lenders, a local bank, they will shepherd your loan through. People with no relationship, I don't have any idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, just another quick point on that. There is a motivation from the banks. I mean, obviously, they're getting one. So I had this conversation. They're getting 1 point on every loan that an origination fee. So they're getting 1% of every dollar they put in. So, sometimes the big bankers, they're not as, I mean, they're motivated. I mean, trust me. I mean, Bank of America did 200, what was it, 200 or how much did they do last Friday? 20 billion. So they picked up $200 million in origination fees last Friday. So they're motivated as well, but typically the people that work within the bank are not motivated. They're just paper pushers. They're like the local banks, the community banks, the business banks. They're seeing that direct impact to their bottom line for every point that they push through. So a lot of times, like David was saying, they've got motivation not only from the perspective of we can make a lot of money, but if they have these relationships, they probably don't have as many applications. This is kind of like to us, this is free money, because as long as there's no fraud involved, they have if the loan defaults, they have absolutely no, we'll call it responsibility to handle that. As long as it's processed correctly and there's no fraud, it doesn't matter whether you default or not. They do not have any responsibility for that. Now, if there's fraud, there's going to be a big problem, like David was saying. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mike. Let's move on.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it.
I'm going to mute you guys off.
All right. So that's the update on the loans. So let's move on to our next subject, which is talking about how the pandemic is really facilitating the digital transformation in the residential construction industry. One of the things that Paul always mentions is that contractors oftentimes are Luddites. And I had to look up Luddite to make sure I understood it correctly. But the definition of Luddite is someone that is resistant to new technology. And I think that's a perfect term to use. We always find that contractors are resistant to taking new technology, and this current pandemic is forcing us to do that. Last week, Paul talked about the book "Who Moved My Cheese" and how that was a great parable for what's happening right now with our current pandemic situation. And one of the slides that Paul talked about was, if you do not change, you can become extinct. And I think that this is particularly true in terms of using digital information and digital tools within our construction business. So going back to the first group call and our first webinar, I spent some time talking about the various types of video conferencing and messaging systems that we have out there, whether it's Zoom, GoToMeeting, RingCentral, Loom, Glide. Hopefully all of you have familiarized yourself with those different technologies, and hopefully many of you are using them now. I know from our clients that Zoom calls now are just becoming a standard daily occurrence for them. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is, again, the importance of a cloud-based construction project management system. And we have always been espousing that as the first recommendation whenever we start an engagement with a new client. One of the first things we recommend is, if you're not on a cloud-based system, get on one, and especially now. And there's several of them out there, and I think next week on our call, I'll probably spend a little more time talking about the various options that are out there. The third thing that I want to talk about is the whole concept of remote viewing and design tools. So this has also become very, very important as well. Particularly the things I want to talk about today are a 360-degree camera and Matterport, and how important you can use those.
Ed,
yes.
I was reading an article this morning, and people have been winning and losing in this whole pandemic. Well, nobody really cares. Elon Musk's net worth went up 10 billion since the pandemic. The owner of Amazon went up, Bezos went up 28 billion since the pandemic, and the owner of Zoom went up 7.8 billion since the pandemic. So some people are doing really well.
Right? It is. So let me give you, I want to show an example. This is one of our clients, Lewis Builders, and this was an email that they sent out last week, and I think this is just a great example of how to pivot and really embrace the new technology. So this is something they sent out to all of their clients and their prospects and their whole group. And it basically is just talking about, that they're in Monterey County, they were shelter in place, and here are the things that they have done in order to embrace this new technology. So the interesting thing is that they are using Matterport technology, not just for their clients to be able to see the construction status, but they're actually using it for inspections. So they've actually gotten the building department in Monterey to be willing to review inspections based on Matterport. In addition to that, they're using Zoom for all of their virtual meetings, and again, that's just about a daily occurrence for Lewis Builders. And then they're also using 3D renderings and using Zoom and their 3D designs to be able to do remote design sessions with their clients. So this is the Matterport technology. Last week on our call, we spent a few minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, actually going through this demo. So I'm not going to go through it right now. If we have time at the end, maybe I will. But again, what a Matterport does is it gives you a virtual walkthrough through a building, and you literally can click as you navigate with your mouse through the house. You can go up the stairs, you go into the bedrooms, you can look out the windows, walk around the backyard. So it really is the next best thing to being there.
Now, Ed, the way it applies to the people on this webinar is, in the past, I'm not sure how open the building department would have been to, hey, I want to use Matterport photos for the, to do the framing, approval or whatever. But I think right now, more than any time in the history of the planet, building departments and the entitlement groups are more willing than ever to embrace this kind of stuff. But you may have to take the initiative. I mean, you may have to go into the building department, call them and say, look, given all this, is it possible to use a Matterport photo like John did to get approval? Once they do that, they've set a precedent, and in the future can save you a ton of time. So this is sort of up to everybody as individuals to approach their building department and ask, is it possible for us? Because the building department's not going to come to you. You're going to have to go to them.
Now, the Matterport is a little bit it's a little more expensive and a little bit more complicated, but a quicker and easier approach that I would recommend all of you do, like immediately, is buy a 360 camera. So the 360 cameras are very inexpensive. You can see there's 3 different recommendations down there. I have that Ricoh Theta camera, which is $175. And let me see if I can do a little screen share here. I'll show you kind of how what it looks like with a 360 camera here. So when you take a 360 camera view, you're literally just taking one single picture. But then on your screen, you can literally swipe around and get a complete 360-degree view of that room from a single photo. You can also go up and see the ceiling, you can go down and see the floor. So this is another option to a Matterport technology. And then also you can give it to your client, and with a 3D viewer, they can literally walk through their space. And as they turn their head, as they spin around, they'll actually be seeing what you've taken. Again, this is all just with one single picture. In order to do the Matterport technology, you have to have multiple pictures, and it's a much more prolonged process.
I can explain the difference pretty simply. The difference between the Matterport and the 360, the Matterport is going to cost you about $3,000 for the camera, and you'd like place it in each place in the house. And then the difference in the Matterport, though, is you can actually walk through the Matterport technology stitches all those 360s together, so you can walk around, look up, look down like you're actually there. So the Matterport is significantly better, but again, it's $3,000 for the camera, whereas the 360, you can only do one room at a time, and it's going to cost you $300. But you know, if you're a decent-sized contractor, I mean, I can think of a lot less. You know, investments go. The Matterport, I think, is a good idea as this thing moves forward, because you want to be on the edge, leading edge. You don't really want to be behind. So I think it gives you a competitive advantage, and I can clearly say that our most sophisticated and advanced, and I'm going to say most profitable contractors usually own a Matterport.
Yeah. All right, Paul, well, I'm going to turn it over to you now, and so that you can talk about the economic advantage of recruiting and outplacement during this pandemic crisis.
Okay, well, I think the short of it is the labor crisis in construction is over. That's the good news, right? We have a recruiting company, so we're on top of this. And the amount of applicants applying for jobs over the last 3 weeks has tripled in pretty much all the categories. We're recruiting for like 25 companies around the country. So whether it's project managers or secretaries or whatever, the labor pool has tripled for obvious reasons. So, you know, it's a great time to sort of clean house, right? I mean, you don't have the labor shortage anymore, but if you're not on top of it, you're still going to be legacy of living your old labor shortage. So let's say you had people that you wanted on that you didn't want to get rid of because you had nobody to replace them. There was people that, you know, the world's worst employees, one that's not bad enough to fire, good enough to keep. And we all have our group of those. So the problem was that in the past, you were sort of held ransom because there was nobody to replace them. But hey, guys and ladies, it's new game, new world. Now there's a lot of people looking for jobs, and a lot of people are changing careers because, you know, it's interesting. If you look at the companies that are doing well, you know, as I mentioned earlier, some of those guys, you know, like, you know, Jeff Bezos got $28 billion, and at the same time, they approved a loan to the airlines for $25 billion bailout from the government. So there's some real dichotomy happening depending on where you happen to be in the economy, whether you're, you know, getting something that is, you know, helped by the crisis or hurt by the crisis. And the good news for all of us is that people are still going to build houses. That isn't going away. And more people are moving, you know, into going to be working from home, and that's all doing well. I've got a lot of people that are working on how to get people there. So it's a really, you know, in the long run, it's a good time for construction. But at the same time, how do we take advantage of the pandemic and the labor pool? So moving along, let's look what we can do. Next slide. So we have an assessment test. And, you know, when you're trying to clean house, it's good to know who should you keep, who should you, we'll call outplace, go into that in a minute, and who should you, like, you know, keep on board. So there's three things you can do. First is, I'm going to show you this test that we use. It's an amazing assessment. We've used it for a year now, and we have like a 90% hit rate on placement. So there's these tests out there, whether it's the one we're using or there's other, you know, assessments available. You can really find out who you're hiring. So the use of the assessment has three things: current employees, outplacement of old employees, and how to recruit new employees. Again, it's a new game out there, but unless you get on it and start recruiting and outplacing and taking advantage of this current shift in the labor pool, you're going to miss out. So now is the time to do this. Do not wait until it gets better. Now is the time when people are applying for jobs. So we have an employee assessment, and the employee assessment, as you can mention here, it goes over several. This is people handling abilities. So you take this test in about 45 minutes. Now, we sent it to all of you to take. Unfortunately, we had a glitch in the computer and the server. Long explanation if you have to go over because it didn't work, but that's technology. So we're going to send it to you again. But it tells us, you know, your people handling abilities. I mean, we can know more about you than your mom in about 45 minutes, which is really good because a lot of people hire employees not having a clue whether they can work out or not. So this is the people handling abilities test. You can see all the things they cover. Ed, I can't read them because they're a little teeny. Can you read them? Okay.
That's better.
And then next is
Yeah.
And then next,
Yeah,
logic ability.
Let's move on.
Okay. Which goes over, you know, if the person has logic abilities or not. The blue ends up being, you know, which your score, the green is what a good score is, and the gray is what not a good score is. So it goes over your ability to do logic. Moving on to the next one. Your IC charts tells you, you know, if you have the ability to, you know, with people or logic, you're good with people or good with logic. Move to the next slide, Ed. Now this is an interesting, integrity and attitude. We can actually tell how honest you are, which is interesting. If see this line right here, that line, that's you don't want to be above that line. If you're above that line, you may lie and cheat and steal more than the next guy. So you want to hire employees that are pretty much below that line. Now it's interesting, contractors sometimes are a little bit above that line because they tell people what they need to hear, not what they, you know, what they need to know, not what they necessarily know. And so this is we can tell whether the person is going to be honest or not. Okay, move on to the next one. Ed. Emotional competency, whether they're going to be, you know, stable or not, whether they get, you know, whether they're going to get angry, whether they don't get angry, whether they're going to be able to handle people's emotions or not, how, you know, different kinds of things. Like you don't want a project manager who's not going to be assertive enough to get the subs to do their job. On the other hand, if you have somebody in dealing with clients, architects, you need somebody who knows how to schmooze people and how to, you know, be appropriate politically so he doesn't upset anybody. Next one. Now this is a general, it's like a disc profile, whether you're an analyzer, a controller, a supportive, and expressive. So this sort of outlines your personality. And generally, if you want a project manager, he has to have some analyze controller abilities because he needs to manage things. So, and you don't care so much about the social ability. They need to be a little bit supportive. So next slide, Ed. This is the top quadrants. And so this again goes over various personality traits. In general, you'll be able to know, next slide, Ed, a lot about this person. That's what, this is the kind of results. If you take this test and we send it to you, this is the kind of results we're going to go over with you. And the best way to do it is actually take one, because it's hard to believe that in 45 minutes, if you take a test, I can know this much about you. It's amazing. The technology uses artificial intelligence, so we know how long you've waited to take the question, if you paused, if you were consistent. There's, you know, tons and tons of research to go into this kind of assessment. So you can know a lot about a person. And sort of the bottom line is we can tell whether to succeed or not. If their people are below a 30, they're probably not going to cut it. There and there, we don't know. Above 60, they're sure going to make it. And all I can tell is it's worked for us. We have a 90% hit ratio on placement. So I would suggest this tool or some other tool, it's that you need to use that to take the current labor advantage. Okay, moving along, Ed. Next slide. Now, maybe you might know what outplacement services are. This, if you've been on the internet, you get all these things for outplacement right now. That's because outplacement is soaring as an industry. But all these people laid off, what do you do with them? Now, what outplacement services do in general is help the employee that you laid off find another job. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, because in general, a lot of laid off employees either give you a hard time on the internet, trash your company, may sue you for wrongful termination. There's a lot of bad things that come when you lay off people. So this helps you, prevent those. So first you develop a strategy for career using a self-assessment kind of thing. You create your marketing materials. A lot of people that have been in a job for 15 years don't know how to find a new one. And if they're going to you lay them off, they're going to be mad sometimes. And if they're mad, they're going to try to get back at you in some way. You can define your ideal position. You can integrate network and strategy, learn to handle interviews effectively. So this is all stuff you can do to help a person get a job. Next slide. What we do and other outplacements do, we do outplacement and other people do the same kind of thing. You assess and identify your personal strategy, review assessments to help create a resume, you do job search and coaching. And, you know, we will work with people until you get a job, and a lot of outplacement agencies will. So it's a new, you know, booming industry at the moment, because with all these layoffs, people do not want to be, you know, attacked by hostile employees. So if you're laying a bunch of people off, I would suggest that you consider some kind of outplacement services. So the bottom line is the labor pool has changed. If you don't move with it, you know, the cheese has moved, right, as they said in the book. So now the labor shortage is sort of over for construction. But if you take advantage of it, you can't keep your same old employees, the ones that you didn't want to fire, you weren't sure. Now is the time. Right now is when the people you want to keep, you keep. The people you want to lay off, you lay off and hopefully use outplace and get another job. And you want new people, now is a great time to fill those positions, because you're only as good as your employees. So, I mean, we're all, you know, I tell our clients, you know, if you had to start a new company and you were starting a new company over tomorrow, same company, the question is, all the employees are now gone. Of all the employees you have, how many would you rehire? And I believe all the employees that you wouldn't rehire, you should fire. Or in this case, outplace, get them someplace else. Because we work with lots of companies and you're only as good as your employees. So now is the time, this is the upside of the pandemic, to take advantage of a new labor pool, to go out there, recruit, do some outplacement, and change the general, you know, your quality of your employees to a whole another level, which wasn't possible 4 months ago. So moving on, next slide.
Good point.
All right. Well, that's pretty much it for the recruiting and outplacement. So what we wanted to do next was we asked this last time, but again, I think it's always good to check in with the group and see, you know, what's one thing that you've done that's had a big positive impact on your business in response to this current situation. I don't want to put you on the spot, Sarah, but I know that she and I spoke before the start of the call, and so let's see if Sarah, if you can raise your hand, Sarah, if you're willing to share with us. I know you said how you've been able to get a lot more stuff done lately, and so if you're willing to share, Sarah, maybe some of the projects that you've been able to accomplish here since your state's been shut down, I'll unmute you here.
Yeah, I don't see her hand up yet. I've unmuted her.
Hello?
Are you there?
There you go, Sarah. You're on.
Okay. I made a comment raising hand. I don't know how to technically do it, but
It's all good.
Yes, we've had a project that we've been meaning to do for a long time. In fact, I think a year ago when I met you, Ed, at Co-Construct's teaching,
Right.
we decided at that point to switch our accounting system so we could integrate Co-Construct and QuickBooks. So that project of having them integrated completely and successfully was finally happened yesterday. So
Wow.
There you go.
yes, it's been a long road.
Awesome.
Yes.
Wow. That's congratulations. That's a great achievement. That's good.
Yeah. Feels good.
Yep, I bet. And once we start construction again, which we know we will, then it'll be great to have that in place and know that you can move forward by having your accounting system integrated. So that's terrific. Awesome. Thank you for that, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Can I bring up more of a global comment, Ed?
Yes, David.
Because I thought, Paul, you made a great point, which is, you know, we have some time now where 6 months ago there was more work than there were people. Well, now some things have reversed. If we're work slowdown, work stoppage, now we have time. And the idea of working on the business, and specifically what you just said, Paul, if you were to re-engineer your business and you're looking at restaffing, who on your company would you not rehire? What a great question to ask and think about, because is this the time where some of that re-engineering can take place? And there's some space then, you know, through these assessment tools to begin to say, I literally had that conversation this morning, and the gentleman has 2 people in this company, and they're both bringing bad attitudes. And all I can say is, you know now that has to be replaced. So what a great question to approach this, you know, in that general business sense is, we have a chance to restart. What does it look like? What would we change?
And we all know that I've been through several recessions, and one of the things that happens in a recession is, you know, the survival of the fittest. So a lot of the businesses that don't change and don't move in the construction industry, certainly in the last recession, went out of business. A lot of the ones that did move and change became stronger. And that's your choice. So I think out of this, we're going to get some kind of recession. We can't, you know, stop the whole country and the world and come back out of it and good like it never happened. That's not going to happen. So when we go into the recession and we get out of it, are you going to be stronger? And if you the thing with employees, with working on your business, you can take this time so you emerge out of this whole crisis way stronger than you went in. And then you'll be one of those ones that survive. Because I know the last time this happened, a lot of people in the construction business went out of business. Remember that, Ed? I mean, it was not pretty.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys got a lot, and ladies got a lot stronger. And their businesses came out stronger because they made the right changes that they need to make. So I believe if you look at this as an opportunity, you can end up with, you know, a better group of employees to work with, better organized, you know, better marketing. All in all, you'll be, you know, it's a tragedy as far as all the cost of it, you know, in human life and whatever. But on the other side of it, if you choose to, everybody in this call can come out of this pandemic stronger than they went in, which would be a big advantage because it's going to be a little tougher on the other side of this. It's not going to be easy.
Yep.
Ed?
All right. Well, anyone else? I don't know. Do we, you guys see anyone else that we want to put on the hot seat? Anyone else want to share something positive that's come out of this in their business?
I don't see any other hands up.
Let's see.
Okay.
Who else do we have on here? Maybe Ned, Ron, Stephanie, Jens. Any of you guys want to share something? Let's see. All right, Stephanie's going to share something. So let's unmute Stephanie. You want to do that, David?
Sure do. Stephanie, you're unmuted.
Hi guys. We're taking this opportunity to pivot our business a little bit. We actually spoke with Paul, and we're going to implement speaking with architects to grow our company from being small to larger than it is now. Yeah. And we've also embraced the Zoom technology, and we are actually moving all of our design meetings, even after this pandemic, to Zoom, because I can share my 2020 screen with clients and design in real time, and they've all been extremely receptive of this idea. So we're using this pandemic to take on two big opportunities.
Right. And, you know, I have a couple clients that are doing that. And one client in particular I worked with, she spent way too much in time in a car driving around to meetings that weren't that productive. And, you know, I don't know if Gina's on the call or not. Her name was Gina. And she would, you know, I remember with a specific example, I said, Gina, why are you spending an hour in your car in traffic to talk to this person that may be an entire waste of time? And we have implemented the whole, in fact, right now we're doing all the initial interviews on the phone. People are taking pictures of their, you know, projects. We're not actually going out to see anybody till we're going to get a check, which should save Gina hours and hours and hours every week. And now people are more open than ever to say, well, let's start this on the phone. Let's start this on Zoom. Let's get it all going. Let's get the design started. You can have like a $500 thing just to get things started. But now is the time to make that shift, because I'm sure a lot of you spend the time that you don't need to spend in cars driving around to see people that you really shouldn't see. So now's an opportunity to change that.
And didn't you say, Gina, that she literally, because people have a smartphone, she can do a virtual consultation, and she could say, what room don't you like? Let's go to the room. And then she can see, and they can discuss right there holding the smartphones, and then see where it goes from there.
Right. And they take some pictures. So she has gone from going out to the first interview with a client to doing everything on the phone until they're very serious and they're committed. So her closing ratio on the first interview has gone from 20% to 90%, just by implementing that kind of technology. And now more than ever, as Stephanie mentioned, people are going to be open to this, because they want to see in person anyway. So it's all good.
Right.
Well, thank you, Stephanie, for that. So I see a comment from Ned, and that Ned's been actually working on his website. And let's see if we can unmute Ned if Ned's willing to share with us maybe some of what he's learned from working on his website here.
All right, Ned, you're unmuted. Ned, are you with us?
Let's see. Can you hear me? No, we can't hear you.
We cannot, Ed. You're unmuted. Ned, are you muted on your side?
Oh, he's saying let me try to plug in. Okay, so he's
there
trying to see if he can get his microphone going here.
We're all doing this technology learning curve, right?
Isn't it true? There might be a little bit of Luddite in me, Ed. I'll be honest.
Well, I to share a backstory. I've been dragging contractors through technology for 35 years. I mean, I remember when I started, people said the cell phone was a waste of time. It disturbed their peace of mind in the truck. And cell phones were never going to happen. And then they didn't want email. They didn't want websites. They keep fighting it. But, eventually they come around and the strong survive. So now's a good time to move.
Hey, can you guys hear me now?
But
yeah,
I hear you. There, okay. Ed, you're there. I'm sorry, Ned.
Sorry, I don't have my camera on. Apparently, it's not on my PC. It's on my laptop. So yeah. Anyway, I wanted to first of all thank you guys for all that you do in getting us focused on the business side of things, and it's been a pleasure, joining you guys on the calls for the past 3 weeks. So really, thanks for all that you've done. In terms of what we've been doing, we're an outfit based out of Northern Virginia in the Washington D.C. market. Fairly high-end market. That's what we focus on. It's a expensive market. Our average home probably sells for well over $500,000. We tend to focus mostly on products that's over $1 million. So it's a very high-end market that we tend to focus on over here. So we've been, most of our clients are professionals, people that are, have their own businesses or are doctors or lawyers or, so we're fairly sophisticated clients of ours. And so we need to approach them a little bit differently than just a general sales tactic. We have to approach them, in like an educated consumer. So we have to make sure that we provide them a lot of information about our process and our people and the product. It's a little bit of a hand-holding and educational process, but we find that to be
Ned,
helpful.
So what have you done, Ned, specifically since you did this pandemic that's been different, that's been helpful for you? Have you had time to work on your website, or what's different?
Yeah, so we basically took a look at our site, which was, kind of a bulky site, and we've been working on redoing the site. So we are going to be implementing these online virtual tours that we've been talking about. So that's a section of the site that we're incorporating, and we're also working on like a calendar that people can set up appointments online, with us. So so we're adding features to go more technology friendly upfront and do these virtual tours. And we have not purchased this 3D 60 camera, but that sounds like a great thing to do. So we'll plan on doing that as well. And but if anybody needs help, evaluating their site, since I've gone through this process a couple of times, I'd be happy to assist them, with evaluating their site as well.
So because a comment with that, we've started 3 or 4 construction of new sites. We do websites also since this, because people have had the time to move on stuff and waiting on in the past. So it is a good time to update your website and make that happen. So
I would agree. Yes, absolutely.
thanks, Ned. Appreciate that comment. So Ed, you're on.
All right. Well, I think that's all. Well, I think that's all the questions that we had. There's Dad. Hi, Dad.
He was photobombing you, Ed.
Yes, he was photobombing me, exactly. So, all right. I think that's pretty much all of our questions. So we've got just a couple minutes. Let me just real quickly see if I can get the Matterport up and at least get you guys so you can see what this how the Matterport technology works here. So let's see. Are you guys? Can you see the Matterport?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Now this is spectacular, and you mentioned the cost of the camera, Paul. Can you also have them come out and do a visit?
Yeah, there's a couple options that I know of.
Yeah.
A good company that's talking right now. What happens is they can come out, and I think for about $500 they'll actually do a Matterport because they have to move the camera around. Or if you want to buy the camera, you have to sort of rent the software on an ongoing basis, $100 a month or so, and you can do that. So all in all, it's a decent investment. When you think about it, though, any construction company over $2 million should just have one, in my opinion, because it definitely separates you from the competition. You can do inspections with it. You can work with architects with it. They can actually tour a job without seeing it. And it's sort of like showing up with an iPhone 15 years ago, right? So you can show I'm clearly ahead of everybody else technologically, and they have what I call a halo effect. Like the example is if you look at in an airplane and they don't maintain their seats, you assume that's the way they maintain their engines, right? We just make that projection. So people assume if you use Matterport photography like this, you are a technical whiz and you are totally on top of technology. And whether it's true or not, it does make that impression. So to me, for the small cost of $3,000, and you could do this to show that you're clearly a leader in your market on the technology is well worth it. You can use it for websites, use it for inspections, and it definitely, where today web-based software helps, but it's not like, oh my God, nobody there does that, right? But if you're doing inspections with Matterport, you're in the top 0.1% of contractors out there. So it does make a big difference. And I don't know how long that's going to be true. Now, if you have web-based software in the top, 10%, Ed? 10, 15% of people? If you're using web-based software of some kind.
Yeah, I would say it's up to probably maybe a third of contractors now. So
right.
So all right. Well, as you probably can see, my laptop is not having a good time of being able to keep up with it. So.
So let's do the color commentary, Ed. So literally with the software, and you guys can go to the Matterport. We could send a link, and you can literally walk in the front door. You can walk down the hall. Ed is now going out to the back patio. You can go to the pool, go outside. You can walk around the backyard, go to the grill. You can go back inside, go upstairs. You can go into a bedroom. You can go into the master bath. So Ed, you just changed the. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ed. You can take it over.
Well, if you go outside, it actually turns into night. But when you think about it, this technology 10 years ago thought it didn't exist. And 5 or 6 years ago, it cost you $50,000, right? Now it's down to like $3,000. So the integration of that software is amazing. I don't know how they do it, but somehow they take all those pictures and they integrate all of them so you can walk around. But if people haven't seen this before, architects haven't seen it, or clients haven't seen it, they're going to be like, there's a big wow factor, like, oh my God, that's amazing. The real estate community has adopted way faster than the construction industry. I mean, pretty much in real estate, if you're selling a high-end house over, $3 or $4 million, you're going to have Matterport photos. I'm selling my house in Hawaii. First thing I told my agent, I want Matterport of the whole thing because it's on the ocean. It makes a way better impression. And right now, if you're going to Hawaii, you have to stay in quarantine for whatever, like 2 weeks. So I figure if I sell my house in Hawaii, it's going to be virtual. So I want to make it look as good as possible. So I had my real estate agent make sure that she took all Matterport photos of the house, and we're on the ocean, so it makes a big difference. And that it's the next best thing to being there. And obviously, if you're real estate, people picked it up because they're trying to sell stuff, but contractors are a little bit behind, the Luddite, as we said earlier, but it's a small expense to pay to be way ahead of the competition.
And you can also use this to take review past projects. You know how people have a portfolio photo? Imagine a Matterport portfolio where people can go in and review work you've done. So there's both new sale and past portfolio recommendations or reviews.
Right. And inspections for sure.
Yes.
All right, well, that's pretty much all of our time. So I just want to remind you that we are doing the free weekly webinars that we talked about at the beginning of our call. And that's on Fridays at 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 p.m. Eastern. And one more time, I just want to put our contact information up here. All three of us are available at any time. Please feel free to pick up the phone and call us or email us.
We're gonna send you all a link so that the thing I went, the appraisal, only $100 for free. If you want to take the appraisal, we're gonna send everybody with this webinar the assessment, a link to the assessment. So please go ahead and take it. We'll interpret it for you. It didn't cost you anything, but if you've never experienced this kind of an assessment, you should know how well they work, especially on yourself, so you can evaluate whether you want to use this kind of a tool for your outplacement or your evaluations or recruiting. But until you've actually experienced it, you won't get how good it is. So I suggest everybody click that link and check it out.
All right, well, that's it, folks. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week for our group call on Wednesday, or hopefully at our webinar on this Friday. Thank you all.
Good night. Good day, excuse me.
Good day.
Good day.